had to make a quick video today when I saw this story pop up from the Irish Crimes, another globalist mouthpiece in a similar vein to RTE, BBC, CNN, The Guardian, etc. It's one of these stories that makes you laugh or weep at the stupidity of people. I mean, it's funny in the sense that you can see that this story is written for the midwits. This is all about Ireland holding the presidency of the EU next year and the rollout of digital IDs and digital wallets, which the EU has wanted for years. And of course, what they do is present everything to you. It's about safety and security, and won't someone please think of the children? I just thought this article really deserves a bit of deconstruction. First of all, it talks directly about it being in Ireland, that this is something about Ireland rather than the EU and Bill Gates and the technocrats. And then secondly, it points out how you've had a similar development in Australia. Now, I think the primary reason of first mentioning Australia is already doing something that we're not doing, is to make the middle class midwits feel like we're falling behind in our progress into the abyss. That's the first part. What, of course, it leaves out is that Australia, like Canada and New Zealand, is part of the crown of the British Empire. And what we have seen very explicitly happen over the last 10 years is that those countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, have all been used for test beds to see how far you can torture your own populace and radically change them. They do these things in faraway places before bringing them to Europe and America. Okay, that's point number one. But let's have a look at the article. I know it is a bit brain damaging to read this because this is geared for morons who read the Irish Times imagining it's the Irish Times of the 1990s rather than the state, or rather corporate fascist state propaganda. Okay, the first part is what they want to do: bring a memo to Cabinet that will propose linking a child's age with their online MyGov ID account as part of a plan to increase protection for children. Okay, so the EU wants everyone to have a wallet that contains all their information, which would be ID, medical records, bank account, amount of carbon used, what vaccines you've taken, etc. And they've had this MyGov ID thing for a while, but so far hasn't directly impinged on people. I think you do now need it to have a driver's license in Ireland as well. So they have the basic framework of the MyGov ID in place, but what they want to do is bring in this wallet. And what's really sinister about this is they're talking about, like, this essentially will evolve into a child from the point where a child is born, of having all their details placed in this wallet that you won't be able to function in society without. So Australia's already done that. On December the 10th, you can't get onto social media. So it makes us feel, oh God, we're falling behind, like those wonderful Australians. Australia is not subject to the same digital service regulations that apply to EU member states, including Ireland, said the robot. So he said, This is the obvious starting point because the government is planning to make online child safety a key theme of Ireland's presidency, the Council of the European Union, in the second half of 2026. So this is very interesting. They've obviously picked Ireland um, as those soft-headed liberal people to spearhead this in the EU, while they probably think from an optics point of view that if this was being pushed by France or Germany, um, it would feel it would be easier to reject it as foreign totalitarianism. But those lovely soft liberal Irish people, they care so much about their children. Now, the first part, also, also what I wanted to say is basically what we've seen happen culturally is that we've allowed our children and young people to become addicted to social media and their telephones. And now we have them addicted. We're going to offer them the solution to maintain their addiction. So, what we're saying is we've given heroin to people, and what we're going to do in response is we're now going to put them onto methadone. And to get your free methadone, you need to be chipped up. He's very, very concerned about the appropriateness of what some children do. Oh God, they really do care, don't they? The vampire reptilians. Okay. Oh, and this is a real. I love this. In an ideal world, it would be better for the EU to act in unison on the issue of child safety. But the EU is a gigantic organisation that moves slowly. See, the Irish politicians, they really care. They're really trying to get ahead of the curve, you know. In reality, it is obviously the opposite way around. Ireland following the orders from the top of the pyramid to bring it out first, you know, to just, oh, we're just introducing this idea. Wouldn't it be marvelous? I mean, it's just incredible anybody would believe this stuff. So yeah, Meta and YouTube. YouTube has this thing at the moment where it doesn't let you watch some videos unless you verify your age. And if we look at this in black and white for all to see, Department of Social Protection to introduce an online age verification tool that'll be linked to the existing MyGov ID. So you think, you know, the government is by the people and for the people in the Republic of Ireland, but what this is saying in black and white is that society is being merged into a corporate fascist state where the government does what corporations want, and one has no legal identity or financial freedom outside of that corporate fascist system. So the first day, you know, so you get your people have to renew their driver license, and then people, you know, get social welfare and their pensions. Try and chop as many people into these systems as easily as possible, and then move on to the refuseniks. The government has been discussing the use of the new wallet with technology companies such as Google and Apple, some of the most evil people on the planet. Data protection concerns and the views of children themselves will also be considered. How about their parents? Blah, blah, blah. And then the funny thing left right at the end of the article, there is still a debate within the EU about what the digital age of consent should be and whether a social media image limit should be set by governments or a child's parents. I presume that solitary reference to a child's parents is there in that attempt to cheat karma by telling you as much as they can to your face what's happening and how the choice ultimately remains with you. Now, people don't fully understand the consequence of what this means. Um, Once everybody has a digital identity, it means with the click of the mouse button, you can be locked out of the economy for perhaps protesting, perhaps not being up to date on your transformation into the Borg with perhaps yearly or 6 monthly jabs. And also, perhaps the EU might want to draft your children to go and die in a field on the Eastern Front. Well, if you don't want to be drafted, then again, click at the mouse, you're locked out of the economy. And one could also imagine, well, if one was as paranoid as me, one could imagine a situation where you get a little file on those refuseniks who might have a digital identity, and then when they go to get their jab, uh, they might get a hot shot, if you know what I mean. And then just if you want to get into the real meat of this, a story came up on the Hedge today. I don't think I can say that. I don't think. I don't think. Hang on. Oh, I can't highlight that. But anyway, you can't. I don't think you can link to the Hedge or say its name on the tube without getting censored. But anyway, look at this article if you want to get into the meat of it. I mean, this is the reality. Look at this for yourself, because what I think is, if there's ever a hill to die on, this is it. We're essentially in a countdown to 2030, and one could think that our best hope is the collapse of the EU due to the war in Ukraine. Um, but I just think people need to understand the depth of the consequences we are facing with this. We're talking about society being turned into an open prison where you have no human rights, but only privileges according to how much you obey all the endless diktats to do this and to do that. And the point is to get children into the system as young as possible, because then they accept that as just a fact of life. You know, every time I see a young person buying a can of Coke in the supermarket with their phone, I'm thinking these children, teenagers, young adults have never come into contact with any kind of countercultural ideas. And the counterculture needs to embrace the analog world and analog communications. You know, we have so much graffiti in Dublin where people tag their name out of some sense of ego or boredom. Uh, you know, there are other things we could encourage young people to do. Now, if we go back to the Irish crimes, the safe space. Oh, hang on. My point is just that people need to understand this is as much an issue as mass immigration or war or anything else. I mean, and then the funny thing is, the drivel. It's all drivel. Because the other big story for the little people in Ireland is about the Z-Man. And this, of course, is just nonsense, just pure theatre. It's just give the normies that little thrill of fear about the Ruskies. You know, the idea that the Russians are flying these drones around Europe is laughable. because since the at least the 1960s, um, the Russians have mapped out every NATO base in Western Europe, so that if they wanted to, they could drop their cruise missiles with no problem. I mean, if Russia wanted to, they could drop one of those missiles that travels faster than the speed of sound on Ireland, and there'd be nothing we can do. So you might think it would be extremely advantageous for this country to stay out of the world's pointless conflicts being fought on behalf of the central banking system. I remember, I think it was maybe about 2 years ago, being on the train and overhearing the normies babbling about Russian submarines. It's just nonsense. But there was a good comment here from this guy, Face Kicker. He's saying everyone in Ireland is highly sceptical of these events. All supposedly happened just off the coast of Dublin, and zero footage or evidence presented of it ever happening. And the Z-Man's plane is allowed to take off again, but in a special high-speed take-off manoeuvre to avoid the drones, which they made sure to tell everyone about afterwards. It's all performative nonsense in advance of Ireland holding the EU presidency next year, and the push to militarise Ireland and further erode our neutrality. The Irish people do not want this. I would agree 100%. I do think, though, this man should maybe be studied by science, as he appears to have an IQ above double digits. it's just it's just utter nonsense. So as ever, our duty is to always tell the truth and point out the Emperor has no clothes. Everything we're watching is a TV show. This endless magical theatre of the absurd. And if you want a better future, you need to create it. You need to opt out. You need to say no. And you need to tell younger people what is at stake.